fam, peace and blessings. This is Derric RauKhu, and in this video I wanted to talk about why is spirituality so difficult. Okay, now first of all, let me go ahead and say this: spirituality really is not difficult. It appears to be difficult mainly because a lot of us, we are approaching spirituality from an old mindset. Okay, for the most part, most of us, we've been raised in the West, and as a result, we've all been taught and we've all been influenced by Western thinking. So what happens is that because of us being influenced by Western thinking, we, regardless of how much we've learned, regardless of how much we've read about spirituality and spiritual practices, we still approach everything from a Western mindset which is basically, very linear, logical, scientific, and rational. So we look at things by separating it into parts, because we all come from that period. We all come from this, the conditioning and that mindset or perspective of life being good or evil. That's how we approach spirituality. It's good or evil. It's good or bad. We might not call it good or evil or good and bad, but that's how we approach it. Okay. We approach, and everything is dealt with from that same perspective. It's spiritual or material. This is how we approach it. And this is basically, like I said, it's based upon the way in which we were all raised. The way to go ahead and to simplify it is by totally getting rid of the labels. Okay? That's the best way I have found to simplify spirituality. Instead of, when you get rid of the labels, instead of you looking at it as being good and evil or spiritual and material, vice versa, you look at everything basically from a holistic perspective, and you're focusing on just the cause and effect of everything that exists. Okay, so what I mean by that is, for instance, instead of you going ahead and looking at things from a perspective of is either good or is bad or evil, and instead of you looking at it from that perspective, see everything as basically being a cause and effect. Such as everything that physically exists has a spiritual, existence. Okay, it has a spiritual beginning. Okay, so for instance, instead of looking at being wealthy, aspiring and trying your best to be rich or wealthy as being evil, the way most of us have been taught, because we've also been taught, either subconsciously or consciously, that rich people or wealthy people are evil. Instead of going ahead and looking at it from that perspective, you ought to be looking at it from a spiritual perspective of how making money from a spiritual perspective is spiritual. Okay, let me rephrase that. Making money is a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual objective, because it takes you being spiritual in order for you not to be immoral and use unscrupulous tactics in order for you to make money. In other words, you're not swindling individuals out of their life savings just to go ahead and fill your pockets. That's a spiritual pursuit. That's being spiritual. Okay, so like I said, this is just one of the ways in which I have found to be helpful in regards to actually simplifying spirituality. By you going ahead and getting rid of the whole labels of it being good and bad, or like I said, good and evil, and just see it for what it is, then it becomes a whole different thing of you're not trying to be spiritual, you are spiritual. You're not trying to go ahead and be more spiritual when you're dealing with an individual. You are spiritual by dealing with that individual. Okay? And every situation basically deals with that same thing. Okay? So hopefully, like I said, that makes sense. If you have any questions, got any comments, feel free to drop me a line. Again, thanks for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Until next time, that's a proof. Peace.